All right, welcome back for another episode of Last to Know. This is the series where I talk about those final run books, those last in the series, those wrapping it all up, or in some cases just canceled before their time type of books, those last issues in a run that are worth a few bucks more than you might expect. Some of these things are highly collectible and sometimes pretty hard to find because, again, sometimes it's a planned finale, sometimes it's a finale that comes too soon due to poor sales and a low print run. So making these things kind of sought after in the, after some time goes by. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see this week's selections of Last to Know books, just hang out for a few seconds after the intro and I will be right back. All right, so let's take a look at what books I have in store for you this week on Last to Know. We're going to go with some classic Marvels that go back to the 70s and the 80s, etc. for a little bit, just to kind of give you a broad range of some different things I want to talk about this week. Starting off first with Doctor Strange. His original run following up, after following up the Journey stuff, Doctor Strange issue 183 is the end of that series. Beware the Undying Ones. Yes. This book is not actually as expensive as you might think. Yes, it goes back quite a ways, but it is still a book that could sell anywhere from like $15 to $25. Again, that's not nothing, but it's not like some super expensive book and that's completely out of reach. Meanwhile, average listings for a book like this are about $15 to $30, depending on condition, obviously, especially with a classic book like this. But there is a high ask out there for $130 raw. So really, really nice copies. Could get you an even extra bit of a premium. So keep an eye out for, those extra crispy books when you're out there digging in those boxes because, they could be worth a little bit more even than what they might be marked. For context, how many of these things have gotten graded? Not many, I'll tell you. Only 3 in the CGC census currently for this final issue of that Doctor Strange run with issue 183. So if you find yourself a nice copy, you could be the 4th to join that club. Just keep it in mind, something to think about. Now, keeping it on the darker side of things and sticking with horror, we are also going to look at another popular series, mostly known for, Dracula and then later Blade with issue 10. But there was a long run of Tomb of Dracula books, and it ran all the way to issue 70. So don't sleep on that final double-sized issue with this classic cover, Dracula there, triumphant. This is a good-looking cover and a fun book, and one that does well with average sales still getting kind of like the Doctor Strange book, $10 to $25. So $10 to $25 for an old book like this ain't too bad if you can dig it out of a box for pretty cheap. But asking prices could be a little bit higher right now, as depending again on grade, copies could be listed anywhere in the $20 to $40 range on average for those kind of mid-grade, those up to maybe very fine type of books. Highs, meaning the highest listed one out there right now was $139. I found one out there for a higher grade copy. Well, you assume it's higher grade due to the higher price, but that's not always the case. So make sure you do take a look at those pictures and confirm what your suspicions might be considering the price. But yes, one looking for basically $140. So that's on the higher end of things. Mostly 25 to 40 for this final issue of Tomb of Dracula. Now, this one, unlike Doctor Strange, does have a number of graded copies, as there are actually 71 in the census. So not too hard to get a 9.8 if you're out there searching with, getting closing in on 100 soon. So 71 ain't too bad for that. Now, with that said, that book came out in 1979. We're going to jump into the 80s here with the first run of Moon Knight, wrapped up with issue 38 with this Sienkiewicz cover, right? Pretty cool. Classic Moon Knight stuff. This is another one I always look for when you're out there digging. And yes, you go with the whole, it's a black cover, tough to find 9.8. Hey, it's tough to find a lot of these older books in 9.8s. Just put that out there, regardless of what color the cover is. It's not easy to find older books that have been around 40 years in 9.8 still sitting in a box somewhere. But if you do, good on you for finding one. But average sales on this, kind of in the same ballpark, $10 to $25 on average for this final issue of Moon Knight, while average listings, $15 to $35, with a high mark of $67 on one of these. So not quite as high at the high end of our last 2 books, but still decent premium if you find yourself a really clean, raw copy. just like the last book, there are a number of these in the census with over 100. There's 107 9.8s of this Moon Knight issue 38, the final in the run from 1984 that you can find out there. So not an impossible to find book in high grade, but just something to keep in mind again while you're out there shopping or digging or whatever you're doing, out there in the wild. Now, kind of wrapping up our little darker corner of the Marvel universe, we are going with another book, but going a little bit more into the future here, into the 90s with Midnight Suns Unlimited. Yes, following that, Midnight Suns kind of tail there and Ghost Rider, they did do an Unlimited series. They did a lot of Unlimited series for a lot of titles. Spider-Man had one, X-Men had one, etc. So even Midnight Suns at the time got one. This time focused in on Ghost Rider 1945 in this final issue of the series that just ended at 9. I don't think it was planned to go 9. It just ended at 9 because I don't think it was doing all that well. But if you find one today, you might do a little well on it, because while this may look like dollar bin fodder to most, this is a book that sells on average for $20 to $30. So it's a $20 to $30 book easy if you find a decent copy with some average listings in that $25 to $40 range. And again, with that high mark, looking for $75. So if you find a really nice copy, you might be able to get a little bit of more of a premium. I'm just giving you broad strokes, kind of average prices here. 25 to 40 is mostly the range that people are seeking for this Midnight Suns Unlimited book. Yes, you can probably find cheaper copies than that or more expensive copies than the numbers I give. But again, it's just broad strokes information. There's always going to be outliers on both ends, and you got to look into why they're outliers. Sometimes they're higher because they're nicer, and there's they could be 9/8 candidates. Sometimes they're lower because they're pretty well beaten up, or there's a tear or some significant defect that you don't notice at first. So make sure if you're buying online, you look into the pictures as best you can. Ask for more if need be. And if you're shopping at a shop, take a look at the book and ask if you can take it out of the bag and board. Always ask. Don't just do it. When you're in a shop, it's not yours yet. You didn't pay for it. Ask before you just take something out. But with that said, another book that doesn't have a lot of graded copies, as there are only 2 9.8s for this Midnight Suns Unlimited number 9. So another thing to keep in mind when you're out there looking at really nice copies, that there are not many 9/8s in the census currently. Now, with that all said, any of you out there who need supplies, use my code RENA10 over at BCW and save yourself 10% off your entire order. You get your bags, your boards, your long boxes, your short boxes, CGC boxes, top loaders for your cards, pages for your cards, basically anything to keep your comics and collectibles safe. BCW's probably got products that you're using, so use my code RENA10 to save yourself 10% off your entire order. You help out the channel, you get yourself a discount, so you really got nothing to lose in doing so. So with that, that's our first chunk of books. We're going to go more into modern books, because I know we got a lot more modern collectors out there these days. These are some other things you might be able to just find on an odd shelf, in an odd box, that are just final issues that, again, you might not be aware of. We're final issues. Starting off with Monsters Unleashed, wrapped up at 12. This seems more like a planned finish. 12 is a full year's worth of books, 1 per month. So Monsters Unleashed with the Moon Girl, and you got Devil Dinosaur here. While you're not going to get rich if you find one, this is not just dollar bin fodder. This thing sells for about $10 on average. Again, it's not bad. If you find it for $1, you can get 10 for it. But meanwhile, listings are seeking a little bit more. They're searching for 10 to 30 on average here, as average listings go, with a high mark of somebody seeking $35 for a raw copy of this final issue of Monsters Unleashed, featuring our little Kid Kaiju there hanging out with Moon Girl. So remember when Kid Kaiju was a thing? Yeah. Who knows if we'll ever see anything come out of the character again. Maybe Marvel will use him again, especially all the Godzilla stuff going on in the Marvel comics. Or who knows, maybe get an animated series at some point. That could be kind of fun with the big monsters of the Marvel Universe. But with that said, we got a dozen CGC 9.8s of this particular book for issue 12. So if you could find one, you'd find it yourself, the number 13 Baker's Dozen copy. Unlucky 13 for Monsters Unleashed number 12. Now, another book that ran a dozen issues is a series focused in on America Chavez. So America had her own solo run, which actually was kind of fun to read. It was a little wild. It was a little out there with her luchador grandma and all that weird stuff. It was an interesting read. I'm just going to put it there. This character had some potential to her. She was all the rage when Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness came out, and she was featured in there. I don't know if we're going to see the actress again or the character in the MCU again, but I kind of hope we do because I did like her. She did a good job, playing the role, and we really haven't seen much of the character in even the Marvel Comics universe. So while she might be on the back burner for now, this is a character that could come back at any time. So keep an eye out for that final issue of the run, issue 12. It's a $10 to $20 book already. And you see here with this cover looking like Captain Marvel flying around. And average listings are in that same ballpark, looking for $10 to $25, with someone out there looking for a high mark of $80. So again, that's an asking price. That's not a sale price. You can ask whatever you want for comics, but logic would dictate if you have a ridiculous price, you're never going to sell it. So keep that in mind too. But $80 is the high mark on this book. It's $10 to $20 easy. 80 might be asking for a bit much, but in the census, there are 35 of these. So a decent amount of this book in the census graded because, like I said, this was a character that was in the spec cycle for a while there. Her first appearance, her appearances in the movie, etc. Her run of comics. There were 1 in 25 variants that also were hot at different moments and have done well over time. So a lot of stuff and a lot of things that people were collecting regarding America Chavez. Now, to kind of wrap up this more modern era of these comics in the Marvel Universe, I'm going to go with a couple of Deadpool books here to kind of finish this up here. Starting off first with issue 69, wrapping up that first ongoing series for Deadpool. So issue 69 kind of finished it up there. And this is a book that does all right. I mean, it's not, again, going to make you rich at $10 if you find average sale prices go. But just like our last America Chavez book, $10 to $20 is kind of what the ballpark asking price is. But some people are still searching for like things like $40. So you never know. You could get lucky. Find yourself a nice copy that you can get a premium for, and maybe you find it for, you make a few extra bucks on your copy. But issue 69 is the wrap up of this series. You got Udon as the artist, which is also kind of interesting. And there are a lot of these in the census. So again, this is a popular book and a popular character. So I'm not surprised to see 74 9/8 of this final issue in the run. So if you do get yourself a 9/8 or a 9/8 candidate, yeah, it's a pretty big pile you will be joining, but still could be worth it because you can still get a decent premium for it. Now, with that said, one more Deadpool book, but it's Cable and Deadpool, which wrapped up their kind of crossover series or combo series together with issue 50. The whole end of this run was a good run because it had Scotty Young covers, which were pretty cool. I know I talked about those on Dollar Bin Digging before, but this final issue, bonus final issue, and I believe this cover was even reused on that Massacre book, and then you had the Spanish language version. I believe they reused that art, but this is for issue 50 of Deadpool and Cable. It says it right there on the front. It's not always the case with the last issues. This is bonus size finale issue. Not all of them announce that, but this one does, and it goes for an average of $30 to $45, which ain't too bad when you consider this is just the final issue of Cable and Deadpool. There's not a lot else about it apart from, it's kind of end of the run, pretty popular, pretty cool cover, but it's not like, oh my God, there's the first of so-and-so that everybody needs to have. So with that said, average listings on this, $40 to $50. So it's pretty consistent, and it's more of a tighter window on what people expect to get when they have one listed. They're looking for $40 to $50 with a high mark. Somebody seeking 85. So once again, keep that in mind. Another book that has a decent number of the census with 68 copies and 9.8 already, but you can always add to the pile. You can always do one with one more because, why not, right? With that said, and speaking of why not, how about Whatnot? If you guys haven't tried Whatnot yet, please use my link down below to sign up, and you get yourselves a free $15 off your first purchase. That's $15 to spend on whatever you want with whomever you want. No strings attached. Just try out the application, check out the live auctions, and even some buy it nows out there. Free $15 to spend on whatever you like just by using my link down below. You help out the channel. You get yourself free $15 to buy something. Why not give it a shot? So with that, we are going to go now wrap up the show with our last segment and go in with some different fare, more classic stuff, or at least classic nostalgic stuff for me. I do like covering things. I think we've done Transformers, we've done G.I. Joe, but another one of my favorites growing up was Masters of the Universe. And here, well, we're going to start off with this first issue, issue 12 of that Star Comics Marvel Masters of the Universe run. I know what you're going to say. This is not the last issue. You're right. It's not the last issue, but the final two issues are kind of mirror images and kind of go together, often selling as sets or people seeking to complete sets or have both. So I kind of put both of these here. So bear with me as we look at issue 12, which here lies He-Man. You got Skeletor, ha ha ha, celebrating the demise, yada yada. This book, on average, has a pretty wide range. Can go anywhere in the $20 to $80 kind of range, depending on grade, depending on the grade of the copy that you have and the copy that you sell. Listings tighten up a little bit more. $40 to $80 is what most people are seeking, with a high looking for $100, which isn't too far off that $80 on the broad strokes kind of average there. So pretty consistent altogether. Mid grades and then better to grade, better the price. So always keep that in mind. But that is for issue 12 of Masters of the Universe from Star Comics. There are already 34 in the census, which again, after all this time, I'm surprised there's not more 9.8s. 34 is not a huge number because a lot of people collect these, as I said, and a lot of people are chasing those high grades. I know a couple of people completing 9.8 sets of the entire run. Since it's only 13 issues in total, it's not an impossible task. It's something that is kind of attainable if you're willing to be patient and actually pay the price of what some of these cost. Now, with that said and that mentioned, issue 13 actually is the final issue of the run. So these kind of go hand in hand. They go together almost as a pair, as a set. As you can see here, Skeletor lies, He-Man lives. Cool. He-Man's back. Issue 13, Star Comics. This is the final part of the series. Average sales on this one, a little bit more. Getting 60 to 90 on average. So again, it's the final in the run. It gets a bit of a premium, while listings actually are in the $40 to $85 range. So one actually sold for more than what people are seeking right now, which is kind of surprising, with a high ask of $95. So still pretty close in range. It's just more on a higher end for the final issue 13 than issue 12, but they still kind of go together. As you'll even see with the CGC census numbers are very close, as there are 38 of this one in 9.8. There were 34 of issue 12, 38 of issue 13, because like I said, people like to pair these up and put them together. Now, for our last two books, we are going to shift away from Marvel, because I've covered a lot of Marvel today. No, not over to DC. We're giving them a break this week. We're actually going to go and shift over to some more indie fare and go over to Archie Comics. That's right, Archie's. Archie, apart from publishing Archie, also had Mega Man for a time under their umbrella of comic books. We got new runs of with the timeline stuff coming out with Mega Man. I'm a big Mega Man fan, as you guys probably well know by now, with all the t-shirts I wear when I do these shows, and I talk about Mega Man all the time. But with that said, issue 55 was the finale of that Archie run. This is the last issue, and it did have two covers. I will show you both, and I will show you what may not seem all that impressive. Average sales for this lately, again, just in the last couple of months, and there are not a lot of them, have only been like $5 to $10. So people have actually gotten some deals, because this book has done much better on average throughout the last few years. So with that, this is the cover A. I'm going to show you the cover B while I show you some of those other prices of people listing these. So this is the Rockman variant. As you know, Rockman was the original name of Mega Man over in Japan. So with that, there is a Rockman variant on issue 55. You've got the two, either or. They both do pretty well. As you can see here, average listings are looking for 20 to 50. So even though copies have only sold for like $5 to $10, and again, not a lot of copies have sold, but some people got some cheap auctions and some cheap sales. Maybe not the greatest looking copies in the world, but they still got them for cheap. 20 to $50 is what most people seek for issue 55 in the A, and then the variant 40 to 50. So more towards the higher end, but still kind of in that same range for both. High marks, high ask for both, as you can see here. Somebody with the cover A is looking for 100. Another listing out there is looking for 90 out of the Rockman variant. So again, pretty close for both on the high end as well as the averages. See what you can find out there, because it's well worth your time. I'd go get any of these Archie books, to be honest. Anytime I see them, if they're cheap enough, I just grab them, because I was looking to try to complete a full set. Nowhere near it just yet, but issue 55 being the final issue is going to be one of the tougher ones, so keep that in mind as well when you're out there hunting and digging for your comics. But if you get a really, really nice copy, consider getting it graded, because currently, whichever cover we're talking about here, there are no 9.8s of either book. There are 292s of the cover A, and there are 294s of the Rockman variant. But those are the highest graded copies that we have. We don't even have a 9.6 currently. So keep that in mind as well. Why is that, you might ask? Well, think about it. Just general purposes, you think about Archie books. Where are the Archie books? They're going to be with the kids' books. Where are the kids' books usually? They're either buried under a table or stuck on the old school comic rack, which is great to look at, but does not treat books well, especially raw copies jammed into those metal girders, leaned forward where gravity takes hold and bends and bends and curls and spine ticks up every book that's in there. So with that said, no 9.8s just yet for either Mega Man 55. And since we're talking about Archie and since we're talking about video game characters and Mega Man, why not look at another popular video game character that also had an Archie run, Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, Sonic's been around a while. We've seen Sonic get hot the last couple of years due to 3 very successful movies that were also very good. I liked them. With that said, Sonic the Hedgehog ran for a whopping, 290 issues, I believe? Yeah, issue 290. 290 issues over at Archie for Sonic. And then went to IDW, and, it's got a decent run going there now. But 290 issues over at Archie. And this was the final one. We've got the metal little Sonic there. I forget what we call him. But we got, robot version of Sonic there running him down. This book is very expensive, actually. So if you're lucky enough to find one, and it does have 2 covers, like our Mega Man book, because Archie did 2 covers on some of these for a while there. This thing sells for $60 to $110. That's right, $60 to $110 for this Sonic 290. It's not a bad score if you can find one cheap enough. And this is the cover A. Also, keep your eye out for the B cover, which has Amy on it there. Again, wrapping up the Archie series there as this one. Both of them are also in the same kind of ballpark, looking for $70 to $110. $70 to $110. And I believe there's one listed actually out there looking for $500. I know, fishing for the crazy prices. There's no law against it. Just saying. Average lists 70 to 110. There's a high one out there looking for $500. Sometimes these things also can be sold as sets, with both covers. So keep an eye out for those kinds of deals, because then you get both. And sometimes you can get them for a bit of a discount because of, you're getting 2 for 1. So keep that in mind as well. But this is the Cosmic Eternity variant, the B cover for Sonic 290. Again, not a lot of high-grade copies, but there are 9.8s of this one. Not many. The cover A has 2, and this cover B here only has 1. 9.8 in the census. So, yeah, if you find yourself a nice copy, maybe you could join this very exclusive club of 9.8s for Sonic 290. And you already saw what the raw prices are. I didn't bother to tell you what the graded prices are, but you can kind of guess. You can kind of do that, extrapolate the math, and figure how much you could potentially get if you get yourself a nice high-graded copy in CGC. Now, with that all said, that wraps up our show for this week. Hopefully you found that interesting. Hopefully you found that entertaining. So until next time, I'm trying to plan out some extra shows to have drop while I'm away on vacation next week. But, I'm doing my best with what little time that I have left. With that said, last to know, dropping today. I'm going to try to get a sneaky keys out for next week, as well as the Wednesday watch list. And don't worry, the Hot 10 won't be missed either week, every Friday at 9. And with that all said, I'll see you all later with some more content. All right?